Hello, my loves. Vincent and I have both been super sick over the last 4 days, and as both of us are now finally moving out of having a fever, I had this sudden inspiration to create this new deck list for new witches. We've just had a full moon, super moon in Aries, the hunter moon, or if you observe in the manner that I do, the blood moon. We just had a blood moon in Aries, and it's also my moon time, and I've just really been feeling very connected to Babylon and Lilith right now, as well as dark Persephone and the dark face of Venus. So I was feeling very much drawn to talk about witchy things today, even though I'm not at 100%. And so I thought we would do 5 decks for beginner witches, and I thought we would talk a little bit about some decks that I think are very helpful to get the feel of witchcraft. And I do have a few honorable mentions, of course. How could we not have some honorable mentions? So, of course, this list is very subjective. It's very much based on how I experience my witchcraft and kind of fundamentals to witchcraft for myself. So some of you who are already advanced in your witchcraft practice might wonder why certain decks are on this list, and yet I personally have found them to be very indicative of how I experience the craft. Because for me, of course, the craft is about the balance of light and dark and the liminal spaces. And so there's always a call of responsibility, as well as the power of embracing our own magic. And so these are decks that I felt gave windows to explore, right? Because if you're new to witchcraft, you're looking to explore and understand what your particular blend of witchcraft is for yourself. You know, witchcraft is, some of us practice from a religious perspective with a coven, even from a spiritual perspective with a coven. But others of us are solitary witches who are looking for our own particular flavor or blend of our craft. And so we're not necessarily trying to mimic others' experiences of the craft, but we are looking to find our own. And I think essential in that process are connecting with the elements in order to understand what speaks to us the most there. And also connecting to the feel of what our magic looks like for us. And that does require us to get to know ourselves, right? But also to understand our gods and the land where we walk. So I do have elemental deck lists already in the Witchcraft series, as you may see if you are exploring this playlist on YouTube. But this is going to be for new witches who are looking to find what flavor of witch they are, predominantly in their energy. Of course, we all explore and are free to explore myriad aspects of witchcraft, but I do think there's like a home resting place that we reside within, right? I'm very much an elemental, I consider an energetic witch. Some people might call that lineage vampiric, with a basis in the old ways and a connection to the land within that aspect of witchcraft. And so for me, decks that are synonymous with my craft and practice have to speak to the dead, the liminal, the old beings, deity, and the land. But I wanted to give some nice jumping off points on this list for you to uncover for yourself, you know, where you are leaning into as a witch in your practice. And of course, this list can be worked with by any witch. And certainly if you've stepped away from your practice but are longing to reconnect, then this is another wonderful option for you. So I have 5 decks in the main list, but I do have 4 honorable mentions. So like much of my practice, which involves odd numbers, this list has 4 honorable mentions and 5 main decks, because we couldn't do 10, we had to do 9. And so for the honorable mentions, it's more aspects of specific areas within my practice that I find these 4 decks to speak to very well. And so you may consider these decks to work with in addition to the main decks on this list. So I'm going to start with Alice the Wonderland Oracle. Now, why Alice the Wonderland Oracle? Why not Oracle of the Shapeshifters or the Halloween Forever Oracle? You knew that there was going to probably be a Jasmine Beckett Griffith deck on this list, but I want to speak to why Alice the Wonderland specifically is a deck I recommend for new witches. I feel that Alice the Wonderland Oracle speaks well to residing in another world, another realm, which we as witches, we ride that line between the earth and the ether, right? So not only does it have a very specific realm that you're moving within, Alice's realm here within Wonderland, but also personal responsibility is very strongly addressed in this deck. This is a deck that doesn't let you avoid yourself and what you bring to the table in your experiences. And so this is why, specifically for me, Alice the Wonderland trumped some of the other Jasmine Beckett Griffith decks that I love for being new to witchcraft as a recommendation. I think it really helps you to be aware of shadow work, to be aware of your own wounds, and to deal with your own shit. And also to be aware of the responsibility of working magic, of your magic, and what reactivity brings to the table when it comes to your practice. So for me, Alice the Wonderland is a deck that grounds you in the reality of responsibility. And that's why I think it's a very important deck to work with for witches, especially witches who are exploring spellcrafting, ritual practice, and bear with me guys, I'm getting over the flu. The awareness of the energy we send out, that we are often attempting to diffuse, and what we can tend to steep in for too long. I think the Alice the Wonderland Oracle gives you a real sense of being in the driver's seat of your practice, which is important to be aware of and to be very real about, because witchcraft is not rainbows and hearts. Witchcraft is the light and the dark and the union thereof. My next honorable mention is the Magickal Botanical Oracle. I know some, it's so funny the response that people have to this deck. I love this deck, and I think if you are a hedge witch, or if you are a forest witch, or if you are a witch who works with plant magic in their practice, then this is an oracle deck to explore. Or if you're wondering what it's like to connect with plant magic and with the earth element in your craft, both baneful and light witch based, this is a wonderful option for you. I actually just personally finally ordered a few Maxine Miller prints for my apartment, and I'm very happy to have them here based off of imagery from this deck. This is another deck that is very aware of all of the aspects of the elements that exist within the witch's garden, and it has some spellcraft recommendations for you within the guidebook, and it also encourages you to look at the root of your magic and to be very aware of what you are doing within your craft. And so I think this is a wonderful deck for witches who are drawn to the earth element, to plant-based magic. And if you're wondering about that, if you want to know if you might connect with that, I do not consider myself a hedge witch, and I really, or a plant witch, and I really, really love the Magickal Botanical Oracle. So I think this is a great option if you're new or you're reacquainting yourself with your witchcraft path to explore plant magic and hedge witchery. Next on the list is the Witch Sister Tarot. I love the feel of this deck in how my own practice feels, of the earth, gritty but fiery and passionate, liminal and watery, clairsentient and aware, right? I think that this deck really beautifully, Julia Jeffrey's Witch Sister Tarot, really beautifully expresses that. It didn't make it into my top 5 because I actually don't really use this when it comes to my witchcraft practice. I use this more to feel connected to the old ones and the gods of the land especially. So if you are looking to feel that sense of connection, and if you are looking to earth your practice into your body, the Witch Sister Tarot by Julia Jeffrey is a really great way to begin that journey. I don't feel that it's a traditional tarot deck as well, and so you can get something different out of the guidebook for sure. It's a very, very beautiful, special, and unique deck. And it almost made it into the top 5 for me for this list, but I highly, highly recommend Julia Jeffrey Witch Sister Tarot, especially to connect more to the fire element of your practice, but also to the karmic aspect of your craft practice. This is a really beautiful deck for that. And then the final on my honorable mentions is the Compendium of Witches Oracle by Natasha Denonna. Please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. Been an interesting time on the channel with a lot of people correcting me. I am only human, my loves. I'm only human. Sometimes I mispronounce things. Doesn't mean I don't have utmost love and respect for deck creators and for my craft. So the Compendium of Witches Oracle is really beautiful to connect in with the archetypes within the history of witchcraft, as well as fundamental aspects of the witch's tools. What's in her toolkit? This is a beautiful deck to connect with that. And again, much like the Witch Sister Tarot, like these two decks are core to my personal practice. So I in no way want you to think that these are less important to my witchcraft practice to me. They're just not quite so much those, the first thing that I reach for necessarily personally when I'm feeling very connected to my witch self and to my practice. But they are very close to those first few that I grab. I have deep love for this deck. I am so glad that my sister in the cards recommended that I get this deck. She was 100% right. It's absolutely stunning. It's a very powerful deck that requires you to really bring focus, attention, and awareness to working with it. But I think it's a great one for beginners as well, though, because it's very accessible. It's not like, oh my God, what is the name? Forgive me, guys. I've had a fever for a few days, as well as my son having one for even longer. It's not like Quaria. I would not recommend the Quaria Oracle for new witches, but this, the Compendium of Witches, I would absolutely recommend to beginners. So now that we've moved through our honorable mentions, let's get into the top 5. And I want to speak about 2 of these decks, which are going to be the first 2 decks I talk about. They're very occult based. Now, why am I putting them on the witchcraft list? I think it is important to know our roots and to connect with our lineages. And these first 2 decks on the list really give you a sense of having an opportunity to connect with the magical practitioner aspect of our craft. And they can give you some insight into if you're going to be more of, let's say, a ceremonial witch as opposed to an energetic witch, or a witch that's based elementally. So the first deck on this list is Crowley's Thoth Tarot, or the Thoth Tarot, however you would prefer to say it. I'm just going to be of the people here and call it the Thoth Tarot because that's what I've always called it. But I understand a lot of people will choose to call this the Thoth Tarot. So if you want to understand the ceremonial, traditional, magician aspect of witchcraft, Crowley's Thoth Tarot, Crowley's Thoth Tarot. I have been on an alternate plane the last few days with this flu. Crowley's Thoth Tarot is a great way to try that on for size and see, do the occult, traditional, ceremonial aspects of witchcraft speak to you? For me, I love to read about it. I don't feel the word within the practice the way that some practitioners do, but I'm glad that I've done my research to understand the symbolism within this deck, and it's given me insight into my witchcraft practice of like little bits and pieces that I might bring into my work. But I am much more based in the sacred feminine essence of witchcraft. And so that's why I put this on this list, because it was very helpful for me to clear away, do I want to go in a more religious, traditional focus of witchcraft? And I knew after working with the Thoth Tarot that wasn't going to be the way I wanted to go. But it did help me to have some really great access to occult symbolism and to understand that I could kind of bring in some of those pieces to my craft. And for specific ritual, I love to work with the Thoth Tarot because it does have that vibe, that traditional ceremonial magic vibe. So I do recommend spending some time with this deck and getting to know the symbolism so that you can see for yourself as a new witch or as someone reacquainting oneself with their craft, do I want to bring this flavor into my practice? And, you know, could you maybe be being a little bit subversive in picking and choosing what you're bringing in from a traditional ceremonial witchcraft perspective? Sure you can, but isn't that the point of witchcraft? That's why I've never understood bringing religion into witchcraft. But I digress. That's for another video. That's for another ranty video at another time. That will probably only go up on Patreon, honestly, these days. But the Thoth Tarot is a wonderful choice to just explore and see and try that on for size. And if you really love the ceremonial component of witchcraft from a traditional coven practice viewpoint or a traditional magician's viewpoint, then you'll know that you want to explore that more. And if it's not quite the sweet spot for you, you will at least be able to hold a conversation around these tenets and to understand the symbolism, which is in its own way rooted in universal symbolism. So next on the list is a similar deck, but this is like, the Hermetic Tarot for me is like Lucy Westenra within the Dracula myth in Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula film. Let's be clear about which Lucy we're talking about. This deck is the romanticized version of occult symbolism for me. The Hermetic Tarot just takes me to places that the Thoth Tarot never could, because it's taking itself a little too literally. I love this deck, and again, I think if you want to understand the roots of symbolism that apply itself to reading tarot, yes, they're fundamental to reading tarot, but also to understanding aspects of the craft, then the Hermetic Tarot is a great option for you to connect with. And I want to speak about specifically for me what has assisted me. And if you work with Ian Daniels' Tarot of Vampires, you will see that Ian cross-references the titles within the Hermetic Tarot in every card in TOV. So Child of the Great Transformers is the title of the Death card within Hermetic Tarot. This title, these titles open doorways for me in ways that the Thoth Tarot is not able to. So I put this on the list because for me, not so much the artwork, but the card titles helped me to understand the mysticism of the traditional occult symbolism. And it gave me some insight into my own spell crafting, my own witchcraft practice, and especially astrologically, what I might want to bring in to my practice. Just astrologically, the Hermetic Tarot, something clicked for me in understanding the symbolism. In a way in which Rider-Waite-Smith was kind of a snooze fest with the astrological symbolism for me. Like I knew it, but it didn't intrigue me. In the Hermetic Tarot, it intrigues me. And in a way that Crowley just didn't, I don't know, it didn't inspire me in the same way. But the Hermetic Tarot with those titles and the astrological symbols repeated in the cards in ways that just really stuck out to me it's given me different vantage points. And so that's why I think when it comes to working with tarot and oracle decks for your witchcraft practice, the Hermetic Tarot is a wonderful option to explore. Okay, so now that we've covered the fundamental scholarly aspects of the craft, if you will, in relation to tarot, we're going to move into the spirit of witchcraft when it comes to working with decks. Thank you for bearing with me with pausing to blow my nose. I figured you wouldn't want to be a part of that. Okay, so next on the list is the Magick of You Oracle. So if we're going to talk, we've talked about the fundamentals and the root of the craft. We've talked about the responsibility and some of the elemental aspects of the craft. If we want to talk about the spirit element and the feel of the craft, then Fiona Horn's Magick of You Oracle is a beautiful way to understand your own craft and practice and to connect with the witch within you and specific goddesses and faces of deity that are quintessential to witchcraft practice. Goddesses like Hecate, like Diana, like Nyx. I think we even have some Medusa references in here. I mean, it's all here. And this oracle deck lets you check in every day with the feel of your craft, with where you might be within the wheel, and what you might want to bring into your craft and practice every day. So remember, these decks are for beginner witches or for those who are reacquainting themselves with their craft. These are decks that are rooted in jumping off points and discovering something that can lead to personal expression. And I really do feel like the Magick of You Oracle gives you so much to explore and to step into feeling. And for me, elementally, it's the realm of spirit. It's the fifth element. It brings in a lot of feeling, a lot of integration. So I think it's a wonderful option for new witches to see, how does my craft and practice feel on the daily, right? Not like what can I do every day to be a witch, but how does it feel? How does my craft and practice feel for me? And how do I want to feel in that craft and practice? And the Magick of You Oracle is a wonderful way to experience that. So number 2 on my list is the Darkwood Tarot. I'm sure that that is no surprise for many of you. When I think of my craft, even more so the last 2 years, what it has become for me, the Darkwood Tarot really encompasses the feel of the magic of connection to the ether that I experience in my path. And I think it's a wonderful deck to see through the witch's journey within this tarot deck, how we work with ley lines and how as witches we have many death and rebirth cycles in one life. Not only the Maiden Mother Crone energy, but our craft and practice itself pushes us to grow in accelerated ways for many of us. And I really feel like the Darkwood Tarot speaks to that. And the guidebook is so great with this deck, even just to understand, even if you just read it once, just to understand the witch's journey that she takes within the Darkwood Tarot, which allows you and assists you to tap into your own journey as a witch. Now, for me, in my practice, this deck is also just color-wise and tonality and theme very much in alignment with my aesthetic as a witch. And I don't want to denigrate the fact that aesthetic does come into our witchcraft practice. I think to say that the practice should be, you know, that the aesthetic of the practice doesn't matter at all is ridiculous, right? So for me, this deck is also very much in alignment with the aesthetic of how my practice feels for me and of how I've always felt walking through the woods my entire life, which is that the forest is very alive and a threshold to another realm through which I can energetically access the entry point to that other realm, lost in the mystery of the trees. And so this is a beautiful deck that speaks to this. It's also Rider-Waite-Smith True. So if you are new to tarot, here's your third lineage and tradition within the structure of tarot to kind of round out your connection with the basis of occult symbolism when it comes to the mystery traditions within witchcraft and occult magical societies. So it's, you know, you've got three. You're very well rounded here when you leave this journey exploring these 5 decks. So the number 1 deck on my list is very new. I know some of you are going to be like, how did this deck get to number 1, Racine? You've only had it for like a week and a half, if that, maybe 2 weeks. I don't know. The last 4 days have been like, they have been a fever dream because there's we've literally had a fever. But the number 1 deck on my list is the Lost Oracle, also by Fiona Horn. So I want to talk about why this deck is number 1 on my list. There's so many reasons. I think this is a wonderful deck if you are new to witchcraft. It's a little more rooted in the craft and practice than Magick of You. Magick of You is a little more ethereal. It's a little more ephemeral. It's a little more romanticized. The Lost Oracle by Fiona Horn is very much rooted in the craft. So it's going to help you to feel each of the elements, and then the final 5th element, the union of all 4, the element of spirit. And it's also going to assist you with jumping off points for spell crafting and for feeling alive within your path every day. If you only get 1 deck on this list and you're a new witch, or you're just returning to your craft, I think this deck is a really great jumping off point. It's not the be all and end all of witchcraft. That's not what this deck list is about. This is about jumping off points, right? And the Lost Oracle gives you a lot of jumping off points. It also works very well with other decks. So let's say you're exploring your witchcraft path for the first time and you really love the Night Sun Tarot or the Ritual Tarot. You can use this deck to understand an essence of your craft that's blossoming and unfolding within you right now, in addition to a deck that you already love and trust. And you can work with this deck completely independently in order to understand your craft and practice. Like, what is your personal flavor of witchcraft? What is your personal expression of your craft? For me, witches are unique unto themselves, and they are unafraid to explore that uniqueness. And so a deck like this gives you a lot of jumping off points to acquaint yourself within what am I particularly individually as a witch. And it gives you that freedom to understand that part of yourself and to start following a path that speaks to that, that breathes life into that. So I really, really, really love this deck. And I think if you're new to the craft, if you are a well-advanced practitioner, you're going to love this deck. But I think especially if you are new to the craft, this is going to give you some insight into exactly who am I as a witch. And, you know, labels, I think we get it wrong when we assume we're defining ourselves by a label and we can never grow outside of that, right? I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we get into these labels within witchcraft practice. But when we look at a label as a jumping off point and something to explore, then we open up a lot of possibilities. And if for those of you who've been following me on my journey, you know, for many years, I was really a sea witch. The ocean was home for me in a way that I wasn't able to live right on the ocean, but I spent as much time in my craft and practice as I could by the sea. And it's not that the sea is any less loved by me right now, but right now my soul is being very fed by the forest. And so I am more of a forest witch than a sea witch, but I am always working with the elements every day as a witch. And I consider myself an energetic, or some people use the label vampiric in our traditions. I call it energetic, vampiric, call it whatever you want. that's always an aspect of my craft. It's part of who I am. It's in my DNA, if you will. It's in the blood. So the labels can be ways that we explore and come to understand ourselves as witches better, but they're not meant to be what you always are, and you cannot expand or evolve out past that. And so these decks are meant to give you jumping off points of exploration, and I hope that they encourage and inspire you. Let me know in the comment box down below what your top 5 are for witches who may be new to the craft, or for yourself when you are trying to reconnect to your practice. And as always, you guys know I am sending you oceans of love as I recover from this flu, and as Vincent gets better as well. There will be much more content next week. I've had several videos I've been dying to record for you guys, but I just have not been well enough to do it. So those will be coming next week. So keep an eye out on the channel. I am sending you guys, as always, oceans of love, and I will, of course, see you in the next video. Take care.